I'm Norm Blagman, and I am the Contemporary Praise and Worship Coordinator or Director. We are at First Covenant Church, which is downtown Minneapolis at 810 South 7th Street, right next to the Metrodome. This church has been here 135 years. I started working at the shelter 2 years ago. No, not this season, so it's actually a full year ago. And my wife and I, we were attending here at First Covenant, and got to talking to the pastor, and he was looking for someone who could coordinate their homeless shelter. And this homeless shelter works in coordination with Salvation Army. And so what First Covenant has done is opened up their fellowship hall to Salvation Army to allow 50 of their people to stay here. And my job is to to get people to bring meals to serve to 50 guests, and to create an atmosphere that's safe and clean, and a place where they can actually rest their heads. It began 4 years ago when Dan and Holly Collison, who Dan is the lead pastor here, took over here at First Covenant. He really desired to reach out to the community of Minneapolis, and knowing that there was a big homeless need, especially in this area, because there are a lot of agencies in this area that are here to help the homeless in this eastern portion of Minneapolis. So he thought it was just a great fit to actually be able to use space that the church is not using to allow another entity to come in and be able to serve their people. It's a wide range of people and a wide range of personalities. We have a lot of people that are here that are actually working poor, which means that they have jobs, but they're menial jobs. They're not jobs that, barely making minimum wage. So they don't have enough money to actually have an apartment or a place of their own. So they work, then they come here. This is kind of a safe respite because it's not a big mega shelter like Harbor Lights over behind the Target Center. Because over there, it's an open shelter. So anybody can walk in off the street, which means that it's a little more unsafe, a little more challenging because, sometimes it can be dangerous, for people who are not very strong, either mentally, physically, can be taken advantage of. But here is a place where they can come and find a place to rest their head. So we have working poor. We also have people who are mentally ill. We have people also who are chemically dependent. And so as long as they're in the Salvation Army program and they're moving forward and getting themselves into sobriety or getting themselves moving forward to self-sufficiency, then they're able to stay in a place like this. The homeless shelter functions as it's kind of like a satellite of Salvation Army Harbor Lights. So what Salvation Army will do is they do a interview with the guests, the people who potentially will be staying here, and they have to go through an interview process. Then they sign up for 28-day stays here. So these are faces that I see every night. And so they can stay 1 month, they can stay the whole season from November 1st to April 30th. So they can stay here the whole time or however long they need to stay until they're able to find permanent housing. So I have people that are here that I've seen last season when I was here, but a lot of new faces. And so they have to go through that process there. They have a sign-up sheet. And then there's a group of folks, there's 2 people who are hired by Salvation Army that check them in each evening at 6 o'clock when they come in. They're on a tally sheet, mark them off as here, and they all get mats that are set up in the far end of the room, and they're all allotted a mat where they'll sleep. They'll lay their things down, they'll come sit here. By that time I have my volunteers here, we're preparing a meal. And then at 6:30, once the majority are checked in, we start to serve the meal. Once the meal is served, then we're able to go out and kind of fellowship and sit and talk with them, spend some time with them. There are a number of ways that folks can help. Like I was saying earlier, is that we have a food service ministry where I have civic organizations, small groups, women's groups, prayer teams, different organizations and different groups that'll pool their resources, purchase a meal to prepare and bring down here. We have a commercial kitchen here, so they can either prepare the meal here and serve it, or they can prepare it at home, and they all bring it down and they all kind of finish off the meal and serve it here also. So we have everything here in the kitchen for them to be able to do whatever it is they want to prepare. We have dishes, we have silverware, we have pots, pans, everything. We have a commercial dishwasher, so it's the cleanup's really, really easy and very simple. So that's one way. Another way is being able to come down and just sit with people, talk with folks, bring a chessboard or checkers or cards and sit and play a game with some folks, just so that they feel like human beings. They feel like God's children and not transients that are walking the street. I've had groups that have brought their children down, and their children will bring their games, Candyland and different games like that, and play with the residents here and talk with them and actually serve them drinks and things like that. And it's been amazing how children have a way of breaking down the walls that we adults build up to protect ourselves and to put our faces on. Kids have a way of being able to just tear that down, and I have found that it's just been, I'm even getting goosebumps talking about it. It just creates this incredible atmosphere of life and fun, and people feel like they're human beings. And so I encourage groups to bring their kids down, because it's really fun. But again, they have to also remember that you are in a shelter, which means that you're going to have those that are chemically dependent. You're going to have some that may be even mentally ill, and so you have to be very guarding of your kids and who they're engaging with, and just being very aware of where you're at, and just informing your children and all of where you are. But I have yet to see any situation negative. I mean, I've always hear from the folks here, they love it when the kids are here. Another way is we're always in need of things like caps, gloves, underwear, t-shirts, clothes, coats, those kind of things, scarves, so that when they're out there in the elements all day long, that they at least are layered up and protected to some degree. And with the season that we're having so far, winter-wise, it's really important that those things, and the beauty is that a lot of folks have brought down a lot of things to be able to take care of folks, which has really been wonderful. I think our response is really what Scripture calls us to, and it calls us to serve the poor. That Jesus said there will be poor with us all the time, and instead of making them less than, Scripture says they are the greater ones, and we are called as a people of God to serve those folks. It doesn't mean to allow them to stay in their dysfunction and to enable. It's really about how do we serve them in a way that helps to move them forward. And I think just the opportunity to sit with them, to talk with them, to encourage them, to give them hope. The one thing that I think is one of the bigger detriments to the homeless is when we're constantly thinking we're doing the right thing by giving them money. I really believe that is the worst thing you can do, because in the state of homelessness, the first thing is escapism. You don't want to have to deal with what you're going through. So what do? You go to alcohol, you go to drugs, anything you can do to escape the pain you're feeling in your situation. So when someone is begging you and asking you for money and you give them money, they're not doing anything constructive with it. They're looking to escape. So the best thing you can do is to give them your time. If they're hungry, take them somewhere and feed them, but don't give them money. So it's really about giving your time. And I think that even Scripture calls us to that, is that we are to give ourselves. We are the light and the example of Christ, and it's about engaging and not about throwing money at it and hoping it'll just go away. To me, this is an act of worship. A lot of people define worship within the church as singing songs. My heart has always been that worship is an act. It's an act of allowing Christ who lives in you to shine through you. And what Christ did when he was on this earth is he spoke to people, he dined with people, he walked with people, he helped people. His whole ministry was about sharing the good news, the hope of Christ that lives, was here to live in us, and God who is here with us, to be aware of that. And we do that through our relationships with one another. And I think that for me, what I do on Sunday morning is just an outpouring of the things that I do during my week. So when I'm down here and I'm serving people and talking with folks and giving hope, and it just, you see that essence of God just present in our conversation. To me, that gives me a reason to celebrate and to rejoice and to thank him for his presence in the midst of our conversation, his presence here in this room, how he's able to move and create an incredible atmosphere and give people hope. To me, from that standpoint, I'm so filled up, I can't wait to come and join my brothers and sisters at church and worship God. I think that's one reason why I am so out there about, expressing my love for what God has done in me and what he does through me, is because when I experience the things that I experience down here, and not to say that they're all great, because they're not, they're challenging things, but even in the midst of that, I find God there. And that's the beauty of it, that even in the difficult times and the struggles, you find God right there. And you're able to illuminate his face to these folks. Man, it's just awesome. And so it gives me a reason to worship. So the connection is really about the action that we do with our lives throughout our week, and not about what we're doing on Sunday morning. What we're doing Sunday morning is just an outgrowth of what God is doing in us and through us during that week. I'd say my biggest prayer request here is a way of being able to help people move forward. I mean, there's only so much that I personally can do. And even Salvation Army, from the standpoint of, even with all the different resources they have for people, if folks aren't willing to take on those, my biggest prayer request is that folks would see that there is life, and that you don't have to live the American dream to be happy, that you can actually have a decent job, have a small apartment, and still be happy. And so I think that a lot of what I've experienced here is that a lot of folks, they struggle with trying to live the American dream, and with the reality of whatever their challenges. It's easy to get deterred and discouraged and to give up. And so my biggest thing here is really wanting to, in a nutshell, offer hope. So if people would pray that the Lord's Spirit would just infuse hope into people, because you'll find that the folks that are here, there's a lot of hopelessness. And if there was some way that, we could infuse. And I think that when people come down and just touch other people, you can instill hope into folks. And that's the thing I think we need more than anything else.